This year is flying by. It's already August, but on commUNITY, we are celebrating all things Buffalo.
Yeah, the Queen City has so much to offer. We're going to be highlighting just a few things that we hope you'll find of interest. I'm Pete Gallivan.
And I'm Claudine Ewing. Welcome to commUNITY.
You know, there are so many things that are of interest in the city. One of them is all the development that's not only going on, but planned here in the Fillmore district.
And that's why we have the Councilman Mitch Nowakowski joining us once again on commUNITY. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome guys. So right here, we're here in Broadway-Fillmore, which is a perfect time to do this story because the census data came out, and the first time in 2 generations, Broadway-Fillmore has seen an influx of new residents and being repopulated. There's now a surge of homeownership and residents living here from Broadway to Sycamore. And we can thank a lot of new Americans coming in here and fixing up homes and making this district and this neighborhood their home. And as you know, Broadway-Fillmore by nature has been a neighborhood of immigrants. There was German, then Polish, and now Bangladeshi. So I'm more than thrilled in all the development that's happening, and buildings are now starting to see resurgence and regrowth and facade changes, especially facade changes here at the Broadway Market.
Yeah,
so
sprucing it up.
Yeah. The Broadway Market has been here since 1888. It's not going anywhere.
No, it's not.
The city-owned public market is staying here. So now we are moving it forward with facade improvements in a long-range plan that we're trying to tackle over time, and fixing the facade is the first. So the Central Terminal just released their master plan and really are showing the public and developers how to move it forward and what the timeline is, because we know it's an architectural beauty of the city and one that really needs to be saved. And the first is, how do we do it and how do we shore it up so that it is shovel ready for developers? I believe that public investment needs to be the first thing to do to shore it up, to make sure that the building is secure, make sure that we have HVAC, and make sure that it's structurally sound, because it is an old building. Broadway-Fillmore, folks have always lived in harmony with one another. Buffalonians that have been there and ones that are now coming in here and really making the space their own, and bringing their cuisines, their fashions, and now their passions to Broadway-Fillmore. And I'm a very pragmatic council member, so I know that multiple things can be true at the same time. We do have some struggles that we're trying to deal with, but we do know that from the long-range plan that Broadway-Fillmore is on the move. We need density, we need people walking, and there's nothing more than I want to move this district forward by starting to build single-family homes and make a generation of homeowners here in Broadway-Fillmore. We know that homeownership creates generational wealth. It brings stability, it brings walkability, and this is Buffalo's public market. So we need a critical mass of people to walk here for their groceries every day.
You were talking about the census report. What did the numbers actually show?
The numbers showed in 2 generations now an influx and increase of new residents coming here. So that's really big for Broadway-Fillmore. And we're also seeing, there was a vacancy rate in 2010 that was about hovering at 37%, and now it's plummeted to 17% because we have an influx of new residents coming and buying up these homes, living in them and fixing them up and really making this community their own. And from a council member standpoint, that is what brings strong neighborhoods together, is really making sure that we have residents that are making those neighborhoods their home and walking, talking, getting to know their neighbors and making the space their own.
So that when you're on the council floor, you have something to say, because Broadway-Fillmore is alive again.
Yes, it's alive again. And you know what? The one thing about this neighborhood is it always has a fighting spirit.
And that leads us perfectly into our first story. It is a combination of development and history and beer. 3 of my favorite things.
Exactly.
Right around the corner, they're building a new future by using an old legacy.
Well, actually, this isn't the original door. The original door sat in the original office building circa 1899, and it's broken up by this wall here.
This plan has been a long time coming for John Dumrys Jr.
As you walk in, you would have seen bottling lines.
When John and his wife were scouting places to open Buffalo Brewing Company back in 2010, 662 Fillmore was the second place they looked at, but it was by far their first choice.
The building's been neglected since the 60s. It's pretty much had no love paid to it at all. But the history here, you can feel it when you walk in. You not only can feel it, you can see it.
However, they just could not make the finances work. Fast forward 11 years, the pieces have fallen into place, and John has started the process of resurrecting the old Schreiber Brewery, one of the last existing structures in Buffalo that housed a brewery back in the Queen City heyday of beer making a century ago.
So we're walking into what's often referred to as the mural room, and each one of these pockets had a mural depicting beer through the ages.
Once completed, along with restoring this original space that's believed to have been a tasting room of sorts, the complex will house a new Buffalo Brewing production facility, tasting room and restaurant, warehouse space, and also a brewseum in the old Schreiber offices.
This is where beer was made from 1899 to 1949.
Brewing several beers using Schreiber's original recipe and artwork on the cans.
King Manru was a play by Paderewski.
Oh, wow.
And so that was like the
An homage to the neighborhood.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And for John, this project is as much about helping to develop a neighborhood as it is about making beer.
You're kind of resurrecting the past while forging ahead to the future.
Correct.
But you're also preserving history, and not only history in beer, but the history of this neighborhood.
Yeah, Anthony Schreiber was a huge benefactor for Broadway-Fillmore. Not only did he build this brewery, he had taverns all throughout the city, but a lot of his wealth went back into the neighborhood, funding things like the Adam Mishkevitz Library, helping with other taverns, you know, and employing people.
You may have noticed this old boat docked here on the Buffalo River. What people probably don't know is the landmark status that it holds.
Yeah, it is called the Columbia. It used to take people in Detroit out to a place called Boblo Island, an amusement park, kind of like the Canadiana and Crystal Beach here in Buffalo. But we're not talking about amusement parks here. We're talking about that boat's role in civil rights history.
There she sits behind Silo City on the banks of the Buffalo River, a once grand vessel awaiting a new future.
As a kid, I was on the boat.
Ian Danick is now part of the group trying to restore Columbia.
Feeling her get underway was a very exciting thing for a kid.
You can think of the Columbia as Detroit's version of the Canadiana, the boat that used to take Buffalonians across to Crystal Beach.
They built a huge dance hall, and in that respect, it's similar to Crystal Beach. Crystal Beach used a big dance hall as a way to attract people to the park and as a way of getting people on the boat.
And while the Columbia holds great memories for so many, it also was the scene of an ugly incident and a brick in the foundation of the civil rights movement.
In 1945, a young African-American woman was removed from the boat.
That woman's name was Sarah Elizabeth Ray.
She got on board Columbia on her way to amusement park with her fellow graduates from Secretarial School. She was the only African American in the group, and they threw her off the boat right in front of her classmates.
Desiree Cooper is part of the Sarah E. Ray Project, an effort to preserve the Detroit home of this courageous woman who wasn't about to accept the treatment she received on Columbia.
She went straight to the NAACP, filed a complaint. Fast forward, 1948, her case is before the U.S. Supreme Court, and she wins.
She was represented by Thurgood Marshall in the High Court, and many scholars believe that this case paved the way for the monumental Brown versus Board of Education decision and beyond.
I think if the last year has taught us anything, it's that these are cumulative events, and there's always that one that kind of breaks the camel's back or moves the agenda forward.
We think that the Sarah Elizabeth Ray case might actually have inspired the Rosa Parks incident.
As for Ms. Ray, even though she won, she never set foot on the Columbia again, holding on to that embarrassment and pain for her entire life.
Oftentimes when people are thrust into the limelight, and sometimes thrust into history, it's reluctantly. And it is not always a source of pride.
But she kept on fighting for civil rights, and now the fight is on to save her home, recently designated by the National Trust for Historic Preservation as one of the 11 most endangered historic sites in the country.
Coming up on Community, if you're single, you are not alone. Welcome back to Community. Not only do we celebrate, we also tackle some tough topics, and especially right now, restorative justice, Jackie, is something that really needs to be discussed, especially with all of the crime that we've seen. What did you learn?
Yeah, Claudine, in response to the spike in shootings that we're seeing locally, we reached out to Dina Thompson. She's the executive director of the Erie County Restorative Justice Coalition, not only about her reaction to all of this, but also the ways that they're trying to prevent it and intervene.
Should be interesting. Let's take a listen.
It's in this living room where important conversations happen between those who've committed a crime and those who fell victim to crimes, all a part of the work being done at the Erie County Restorative Justice Coalition.
We are trying to address the violence within our communities, and I ask myself the same questions. Where were we long before the violence started?
Executive Director Dina Thompson says the rise in shootings brings a sense of heartbreak, but also one of urgency.
We're always responding or reacting when we see a conflict or a crime that happens in community. We don't pause long enough to look at the underlying issue, thinking if we fix the direct problem that's happening, that the community is going to be safer for that.
She says we need to give our youth a seat at the table to better understand the underlying issues that are leading to this problem. That's why last month, Thompson, alongside the Erie County District Attorney and a Buffalo police captain, announced a restorative justice pilot program working with Western New York teens arrested for car theft. The goal, to intervene before the crime rises to the level of gun violence.
How we would normally respond has not been working. It hasn't been working. We know it hasn't been working. And so we need to do something different. And so for us, that meant starting this 3-part series. It means increasing our conferencing. It means looking for more fundings to increase our capacity. Because in our experience, this is what makes a difference.
With a focus on building relationships and repairing the harm for people involved in these crimes, advocates say long-term change can happen if all of us work together.
We really need to go back to those kind of communities that are that takes a village kind of mentality, meaning it takes all of us to keep our communities safe. Not one institution, not one organization, but it takes all of us.
Single ladies, listen up. A recent Magnify Money study looked at Census Bureau data and found Buffalo ranks number 9 out of the 100 largest U.S. cities when it comes to the largest share of singles.
So Buffalo is in our top 10 for single adults, and then it also ranks pretty high for a highest disparity between single women and single men.
Researchers also found that women across the 100 largest cities are more likely to be single than men. Men are more likely to be single in just 4 of the largest 100 cities. A majority of adults in the 100 largest U.S. cities classify as single. Single because they are not married, or maybe they're divorced, separated, or widowed. 55.6% of adults 20 and older are single. When it comes to the top 10 cities with the largest shares of single adults, they're mostly in the South and Midwest, but Buffalo stands alone as the only top 10 city not in the South or Midwest. The reasons seem to vary.
The factors of that life is a little bit more expensive up north might contribute, that you're just more focused on, I have to get a career right out of college, I have to be making money and start paying off my student loans, or I need to be saving for a house a little bit more aggressively than I would if I lived in an area where it's just a lower cost of living. Culturally, what I know about like the South and the Midwest is that I know a lot of my friends who are in those areas, they get married right out of high school or right out of college, and it's a much different story up here in New York. You know, I'm a few years out of college now, and I think I have one friend who's getting married or looking to get married soon.
Being single can significantly impact one's finances. So here are some tips. Get and stay organized. Invest in yourself. Don't go it alone.
Whatever your goal is for end game is to establish yourself independently first, and always have that. It's called financial independence for a reason, you know. You don't want to rely on any other person, be it a partner, spouse, sibling, cousin. You don't want, nobody wants to be that person hitting somebody up for money. So you might as well equip yourself to be best positioned you can.
The bottom line, being a single woman is more common in the largest U.S. cities than the alternative. In case you're wondering, Greensboro, North Carolina has the widest gap between the rate of single women and single men. Kudos to Buffalo native and film writer, producer, director Addison Henderson. His apocalyptic sci-fi thriller, G.O.D. Givers of Death, which was shot in Buffalo, had a world premiere at the American Black Film Festival and is going to hit U.S. theaters and premium VOD in 2022.
The story revolves around this hitman and his quest for peace during this apocalyptic time.
The film, set in a world wiped out by a deadly virus that has killed a third of the population, centers on the quest for peace for a hitman.
In this war, tear you apart.
A tale of redemption, a quest for peace through atonement, through revenge, and through resolution. The film explores if peace can be attained when one exists in constant chaos. commUNITY celebrates, and we must pay tribute to a man who was commUNITY. Otis Glover, Mr. Rock. That was his radio name on WUFO, playing oldies but goodies. Music was a big part of his life. He grew up in Willard Park. He loved Buffalo. At one time, he served as youth director for the city of Buffalo. Some may remember Glover's Variety Store on East Ferry. During the Griffin years, he ran for the Buffalo Common Council. He was the assistant vice president for corporate community relations at Kaleida Health. In 2001, he started Caravana Buffalo, a Caribbean parade and celebration. His obituary included this quote: "Nothing is impossible, maybe challenging, but not impossible. It's how you approach things. First you visualize, then you conceptualize until you can actualize." Glover's family says he died after a short illness. Otis Glover was 72 years old. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to commUNITY. You know, Buffalo is a sports town and we love our teams.
And our Ashley Holder tells us about a special honor for UB Bulls coach Jack.
Felicia Legette-Jack is ready to start her 10th season as head coach of the UB Bulls women's basketball team. Now, she is the all-time winningest coach in program history, but we want to go back and focus on Felicia the player, and a big honor for the hoop star.
Hailing from Syracuse, young Felicia Legette-Jack only had dreams of one day playing for the Big Orange.
You know, I just said that maybe one day, if I can learn how to play the game at a high level, that they would choose me and I would be able to represent the Legette family up that hill.
And what Legette-Jack sets her sights on, she accomplishes. She became one of the top players in New York and attended Syracuse for 4 years. Now, 32 years later, a feat she never could have imagined happened. Syracuse named her as the first female basketball player to have her number retired. Number 33 will hang high in the rafters with Legette-Jack's name finally making it up the hill.
It means it's the beginning of something very special that's going to continue to happen. Even though I'm the first, I shouldn't have been. There was so many others that came before me. And so I'm humbled by this.
And I asked Coach what this meant for women's college basketball players, for women who are still fighting for the respect men get on the court.
There's people that see us and they see us and they don't see men's basketball, they see women's basketball. And I think that if we can get the appreciation for what the sport really is, I think that it's going to be a lot more interest, if you will, for women's basketball.
In the words of Kevin Garnett,
anything's possible! I think it's going to give other people that look like me a lot more hope that they can become, even despite what people may think of them. If you keep going, stranger things can happen. They can possibly see you at Syracuse Housing Authority one day, and then the next day, raise your numbers in the rafter.
And of course, it wouldn't be commUNITY without some music, and what better way to celebrate than the Pine Grill reunion?
It's a staple in Western New York, usually the first 2 weekends of August. This year we learned that there's going to be a new African American cultural center eventually built, dedicated to George K. Arthur and Agnes Bain.
The development of a brand new African American cultural center. And let me tell you, we're not talking about something that's going to be small. We ain't talking about something that's just going to be a testament to perhaps what we could do. We're talking about a magnificent facility. An $18 million center that we're going to develop on Maston. Darcel Blue!
The
annual Pine Grill Jazz Reunion. The Pine Grill Jazz Reunion as a way of being able to pay homage to the actual Pine Grill Club, which was a place where everyone would convene and come together. Our kakilambe, our African dance and drum. Traditionally, we've had crowds upwards of 15,000. MLK Park is the heart of our community. And I mean, at some point in time, maybe we can even expand to the outer limits of the park because we still have a lot more room. So I'm not sure that it'll ever outgrow Martin Luther King Park because that's just, you know, the heart. So,
this is the heart and this is the home.
It's a jazz festival with a reunion twist to it. So, because the Pine Grill was a club that was on Jefferson in the heart of the African American community. So, you know, this is really, you know, heritage, but at the same time, it's really become a regional event, you know, if you will, maybe even a national event with people coming from all over.
Tuesday and Wednesday, just won't do. Thursday and Friday, we can begin, but our Saturday love will never end.
This really right now almost feels like a dream because, you know, like after all of the isolation, we're finally able to be out and about and be amongst one another and come together and, you know, just kind of catch up, you know, and see how everyone's doing. And, you know, a lot of people come from out of town, from all over. And that's one of the good things about our city is the fact that as a city of good neighbors, we promote community.
Boy, what a great project that is. Yeah, looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to another edition of Community because this month we covered a lot of ground.
We certainly did.
Development, history, music, even beer.
And we love telling all of these stories on Community because it is you that we want to serve and we want to please. So continue to send us your ideas. We'll see you next month on Community.